The main character in the movie, young Lockhart, is a self-centered individual who is only concerned with his work. Because he considers his mother to be a distraction, he has abandoned her in an assisted living facility. He is summoned to a meeting with the company's upper management and other board members in the opening scene. He reads the CEO's open letter there, Pembroke, who addresses members of the board. He reveals that he is currently on a 2-week vacation at a Swiss wellness spa. Pembroke, on the other hand, states in the letter that he has no plans to return and criticizes the business for engaging in unethical and illegal financial practices. Additionally, Pembroke warns the board members against contacting him again and states that he would never approve the planned merger of the business with another financial powerhouse. The members unanimously appoint Lockhart to bring Pembroke back to New York after reading the troubling letter. They warn him that he will be held responsible for the entire scandal if he fails to perform his duties. Lockhart accepts and travels to Switzerland because he is forced to. He is picked up by a man named Enrico and driven to the spa after landing. Enrico says during their conversation that he does not comprehend why wealthy individuals from all over the world seek out this particular spa. When an irate villager throws a drink at the car, their conversation is cut short. Enrico, on the other hand, doesn't even respond, which suggests that this is commonplace. He explains that the people who live on the hill have a bad past with the villagers. An aristocratic family owned the hill 2 centuries ago. Apparently, the last baron of the family was so concerned about the purity of his line that he decided that only his sister could bear a child. He renounced God when the church disapproved of the union. The villagers didn't like this, so on the night of the baron's wedding, they attacked the illicit couple and burned them alive before leveling the entire castle. After that, it was rebuilt and turned into a wellness spa for wealthy individuals looking for a way to fill their emptiness. In the following scene, Lockhart arrives at the spa and discovers that the hours for visitors have passed. He makes an appointment to speak with the manager as a result. After that, when he goes outside to make a call, he sees a window that leads to an unsettling basement. He finally meets the manager and requests to speak with Pembroke after a while. The manager tells him, as he takes vitamin drops from a strange blue bottle, that their treatments work best when they are kept away from the stresses of modern life. He explains that the spa is built on top of an ancient aquifer that has regenerative properties. Lockhart notices a man posing in front of the main building wearing bandages as he examines the room's pictures. However, when the manager tells him to return after 7 in the evening, when Pembroke will have completed his daily treatment, his gaze is abruptly disturbed. Lockhart drinks a glass of water and thanks the manager for cooperating before leaving. Sadly, as they were driving down the hill, a deer suddenly emerged from the woods and struck the car. Enrico loses control of the vehicle and crashes into a ditch as a result of the struggle that ensues as a result of it getting stuck in the windshield. Lockhart awoke 3 days later in the same spa room. The place's director followed shortly after. Vollmer comes up to him and tells him that the accident broke his leg. Vollmer says he has already told Lockhart's company about the accident and invites Lockhart to try the spa's treatments while he is there. Lockhart sips water as he watches the man covering the window that leads to the basement he saw earlier. He then discovers a parasite floating in his glass, to his horror. Pembroke is in the bathhouse when Lockhart sneaks out of the room after this. He asks the previous CEO to accompany him home, but he is told that he is ill and cannot leave. After that, Pembroke takes a dip in the water, and as soon as he gets out, he suddenly rekindles his interest in the stock market, as if he had escaped a spell. As a result, he agrees to return to New York and assume leadership of his company once more. Lockhart quickly gets ready and calls for a taxi because he is excited. He meets Victoria Watkins, an amateur historian, as he waits for Pembroke. She shows Lockhart the church's ruins, where the Baron allegedly killed a priest. It is believed that the holy water once attracted people from far away in order to perform miracles. After that, Lockhart informs her of the Baron's preoccupation with bloodline purity, and she promises to investigate further. He eventually meets the youngest patient at the facility, Hannah. She sees herself as a special case because she is the only patient who can take the vitamins Vollmer and the other staff members take from a blue bottle. Lockhart confronts Vollmer later when Pembroke doesn't show up and leaves his room. The latter asserts that Pembroke's condition abruptly deteriorated and that he has been transferred to the subsequent treatment phase. He is called out by Lockhart for deliberately making his patients sick in order to keep milking them for money, and he is accused of lying. Lockhart collapses as his nose begins to bleed just at that moment. Lockhart sees Hannah's picture on the desk of Dr. Vollmer when he takes him to his clinic for a few tests. Vollmer says that she is special to him because she was the victim of a serious trauma when she was young when asked about it. He reads Lockhart's medical report shortly after and suggests that he get treatment. The arrogant American reluctantly agrees, and Volmer steals Pembroke's medical file while Volmer is distracted. After that, Lockhart receives treatment inside a water tank. However, the in charge becomes distracted during it, and Lockhart becomes panicked when the tank suddenly overflows with eels. He makes an attempt to escape, but an eel rips off his breathing tube in the process. Until the supervisor rescues him in time, he nearly drowns. Lockhart lets out a sigh of relief and whines about the eels, but he is surprised to find that they have vanished from the water. After that, Lockhart returns to his room and peruses Pembroke's file. When he looks out the window at that moment, he sees a man taking a patient into the old church. Lockhart asks his historian friend the following morning. Watkins mentioned the church, but she is unaware of its current function. She, on the other hand, tells him that the Baron was correct about his sister's illicit affair. However, this did not prevent the villagers from destroying the location. It turned out that the Baron was sickening and horrifying his peasants with medical experiments. Disfigured bodies began to appear in the fields of the farmers, dried up like Egyptian mummies. The village's inhabitants banded together to brutally kill the royal couple because they were concerned that they might be the next victims. Lockhart determines that the Baron was probably looking for a cure for the ill Baroness once Victoria has finished telling the story. Watkins is abruptly whisked away for her treatment by a male nurse. Lockhart then wanders around the area until he sees Hannah riding her bike. He gets an idea out of this. He offers her a ballerina toy in exchange for her showing him around the town. Hannah, who mentally appears to be a child, readily agrees. They eat at a local tavern after a fun-filled and long ride. Lockhart is delighted when he discovers Enrico there. It turns out that the driver also made it out of the accident, and the wellness spa gave him a new car. However, the reason for this thoughtful act was never made clear. Lockhart, on the other hand, meets Hannah over a few beers. She says that when she was young, her mother died in a fire, and that her father will come for her when she gets better. Additionally, she gives him access to some of her vitamins. After that, Lockhart takes Hannah to the bar to see Peter, the town's only doctor. Despite the fact that Peter is a veterinarian, he examines Pembroke's medical record and reveals that the dog is losing teeth probably as a result of prolonged dehydration. Lockhart is perplexed by this because the spa requires its clients to consume a lot of water. He makes a connection between it and the Baron's experiments as well as the field found dried bodies. Although it is believed that the Baron perished in a fire 200 years ago, Lockhart finds it odd that so many people are flocking to the spa in search of a cure, when the Baron was searching for his ill wife. Peter reveals that she had infertility as her illness. After that, he takes a break to assist a dying cow. It turns out that the cow became ill after drinking spa sewage water. Surprisingly, a stillborn calf and some eels spill out when he cuts open the poor animal's stomach. After that, Lockhart goes back to the bar and calls his boss in New York. He discovers to his surprise that Volmer had not told his superiors about the accident. The boss then tells Lockhart and Pembroke to go back to New York in the next 24 hours. Lockhart confronts Hannah, enraged, and inquires as to why no one is permitted to leave the spa. He also inquires about the blue vitamin bottle and Pembroke's whereabouts. Lockhart gets into a fight with a patron in a fit of rage because the shy girl evidently won't respond to any of it. Sadly, things quickly go south, and Lockhart is about to die when Volmer arrives just in time to save him. He then returns to the spa with the two patients without fuss. Lockhart once more observes the staff moving patients into the church later that evening. He also reports that his tooth is beginning to fall out at the reception. He looks through her file and finds Pembroke's room when the nurse comes to get him some medicine. Lockhart runs into Watkins on his way there. He tells her that the Baron's experiments are going on again, and she tells him that the Baroness wasn't infertile because she was pregnant the night of the wedding. The baby was taken out of her womb and thrown into an aquifer before she was burned alive. However, it survived. Later, Lockhart locates Pembroke's intended lodging. The former CEO and several other patients have been kept in water tanks, shocking him. Lockhart tries unsuccessfully to free Pembroke. Volmer suddenly shows up there and catches him in the act. He straps Lockhart down and drills a hole in his front tooth as a punishment. After Lockhart and Enrico leave the spa in the following scene, they go to town. He immediately reports all of Volmer's experiments to the local police station. Lockhart accuses the evil director of continuing the Baron's experiments and killing Pembroke as soon as the evil director is summoned to the station. Volmer, on the other hand, says that he believes Watkins' conspiracy theories. He then makes an inside call to Pembroke, revealing that the CEO is still alive and well. Lockhart returns to the spa on his own accord with Volmer because he is perplexed by the whole incident and believes he was having hallucinations at the time. He goes through a number of treatments later, and as a result, he slowly starts to behave and think like Pembroke. He begins to believe that he is ill and must remain until a cure is found. However, Lockhart experiences a flash of clarity while writing a note to his employers one day. He uses one of the glasses shards to cut open his cast after breaking it. Lockhart is surprised to learn that his leg was never broken. He then enters the church by slamming the gate open. He discovers Volmer's laboratory there, where he carries out his experiments. Lockhart also discovers a pool underground where bodies are dumped and fed to eels. Mrs. Watkins happens to be one of those dead bodies. She appeared to be too knowledgeable for her own good. A worker comes across Lockhart suddenly, but he manages to stop him before fleeing. Hannah is having her first period while she is using the pool. Eels begin swimming in perfect circles close to her shortly after. They do not in any way harm her, for some reason. Hannah, on the other hand, panics and leaves the pool right away. She begins to dash around the rooms until she comes across Lockhart. The latter makes an attempt to explain the situation, but Hannah, in fear, punches him and flees. She then approaches Volmer, who is dining with his patients at the time. Additionally, Lockhart follows her and yells at the top of his lungs that Volmer is a liar and that he is purposefully contaminating everyone's water to make them sick. Sadly, the patients don't believe him, so they swarm around him. After falling asleep, Lockhart wakes up locked in a room. Volmer quickly approaches him and begins to reveal everything. He says that while the eels only live for a few years, they can live for up to 300 years in the spa's aquifer. However, this same water is toxic to humans, which is why the majority of patients are getting sick. However, the Baron discovered centuries ago that proper filtration could make the water drinkable for humans. However, this was not a typical procedure because the filters were real people who had to endure a lot of pain. It was clear that the Baron had no interest in any of it, so he sacrificed hundreds of unwilling peasants until the enraged crowd killed him. Volmer forces a tube down Lockhart's throat after he reveals everything, allowing the spooky eels to enter his stomach. The vitamins that appear to grant immortality are then removed from his digestive system through filtration. After this, Lockhart gets his teeth fixed, and he looks different from the other patients, stuck in the lie that he's sick. In the meantime, Volmer weds Hannah and buys her a new dress. He wants to conceive with her and carry on their bloodline now that she has had her first period. When Lockhart looks through Watkins' notes once more in his room, he experiences a moment of clarity. He discovers a portrait taken some time after the fire. When he breaks the portrait, he sees the man with bandages holding hands with a young child. Hannah is the only person she is. It turns out that Hannah is Volmer's daughter and that Volmer is the Baron. He somehow got through the fire and lived for 2 centuries as different people. He continued his experiments under the guise of running a wellness spa all the while. In order to remain immortal, he killed innocent people, extracted vitamins from their digestive systems, and ate them. He also gave it to Hannah, which is why she thinks of herself as special. In the following scene, Volmer attempts to harm her and confines her to a room. Lockhart, fortunately, arrives just in time to stop him. Volmer finally reveals his scarred face as a result of his fury over this. After that, he goes after Lockhart, but the latter ducks and sets fire to the room. The fire quickly spreads throughout the rest of the castle. Volmer attacks Lockhart and drags him to the edge of the eel pool in an effort to kill him as he tries to free Hannah. However, Hannah, realizing that her father is a monster at this point, manages to break free and rushes to help Lockhart. She hits Volmer just in time with a shovel and throws him into the pool, turning him into eel food. The patients and staff flee the burning castle just as Lockhart and Hannah flee. They ride away in the dead of night on Hannah's bike. The two meet Lockhart's bosses on the road, who have arrived to assess the situation. When they inquire about Pembroke, Lockhart responds that the elderly man has left. He refuses to get in the car when they tell him to. The movie comes to a close with Lockhart riding off into the night with a dark grin on his face. Thanks for watching my videos. Please hit that like button and do not forget to subscribe to my channel.